I've got some troubling news about England's royal family.
I know she will bring to the demands of her new role the steadfast devotion to duty on which I have come to rely so much.
I'm 75 now, and I can't remember anybody except the Queen being there. I'm completely hopeless at it. I was a really bad actor at school, and I've never been able to master the art of mimicry. But
behind the royal wave and carefully polished smile, Queen Camilla has spent decades crafting an image the public was meant to admire. But according to insiders close to King Charles, that image is nothing more than a masterful illusion.
I think the one I enjoyed reading more than anything else.
While the cameras see grace and loyalty, those within the palace whisper about manipulation, ambition, and a side of Camilla the world was never supposed to see. Is the real queen hiding in plain sight? Most people have no idea just how fake Camilla truly is. Until now. Let's reveal the truth.
We're going to turn now to the future queen consort, Camilla. She's given a rare interview about her life with Prince Charles and how she has learned to cope with criticism after decades in the spotlight. Maggie really is in London with the story. Good morning, Maggie.
The fakeness behind Camilla's public face. King Charles III and Camilla have always stood beneath the brightest spotlight of global media. For decades, their every move has been picked apart by curious eyes. Yet even with this constant attention, many people still don't fully grasp the reality behind their relationship or Camilla's true role within Britain's royal family. Since Charles became king, the couple has been wrapped in fresh waves of controversy and speculation. Much of this fascination comes from the long shadow of Charles's marriage to Princess Diana. Diana's story still holds the public imagination, and many have never been able to separate her memory from the way they judge Camilla. People often wonder, what place does Camilla really hold in the royal household? How much of her public image is genuine, and how much is carefully staged? Although she is the wife of the monarch, Camilla has built her reputation on appearing to stay out of family conflicts. According to a source quoted by People magazine, she has made it a point to avoid the arguments and divisions that have shaken the royals in recent years. She keeps out of it, the source said, suggesting she prefers to look neutral. But to some observers, this deliberate distance feels less like calm dignity and more like a strategy. One designed to protect her carefully managed image as the dutiful queen consort. Her seeming refusal to take sides has been most obvious during the bitter tensions between King Charles III and Prince Harry. While the father and son drifted apart and the royal family fractured, Camilla presented a polished, almost unbothered face to the public. She rarely commented, never showed visible emotion, and did not appear to lift a finger to heal the rift. For many, this is not just discretion, but cold calculation, a way to stay above the mess and avoid any stain that might tarnish her reputation further. In his memoir Spare, Prince Harry called Camilla dangerous, accusing her of leaking negative stories about him to the media to rehabilitate her image from Diana's other woman to a respected queen. He claimed she willingly sacrificed his privacy to improve public perception. Still, even as Harry laid bare these accusations, he also admitted that their relationship isn't outright hateful. In a 2023 Good Morning America interview, he said their interactions are polite and even friendly when they cross paths. He emphasized that he does not see Camilla as an evil stepmother from a fairy tale. Instead, he views her as a woman who married his father and has worked tirelessly, sometimes ruthlessly, to clean up her image and secure her place in the royal story. For many observers, this blend of outward charm and quiet maneuvering is exactly what makes Camilla so hard to trust. She is often described as warm and supportive, yet always just detached enough to avoid accountability. She says little publicly about the chaos in the family, but her silence has not stopped her from being at the center of so many royal dramas. To critics, this isn't just caution. It's the hallmark of someone who wants the crown's power and respect without exposing any vulnerability. Even now, as Charles faces the heavy expectations of leadership, Camilla maintains her careful balance. Visible, yet somehow unknowable. Involved, yet always looking blameless. For the public, that very pretense, the polished smile, the quiet presence, the claim of neutrality, makes her story more intriguing. Some see resilience. Others see cold ambition dressed up as dignity. Perhaps that's exactly how she prefers it. To remain a queen draped in just enough mystery to keep people guessing, and to preserve an image that may be more carefully crafted illusion than honest reality. So why does King Charles feel Camilla is fake? Let's dive into the details of how the royal couple met and what happened afterwards. A forbidden love and royal expectations. Prince Charles and Camilla's story began in 1970 on a warm day at a polo match. They were introduced through mutual friends, and from the very first moments, there was an undeniable spark between them. Camilla, known for her quick wit and confidence, broke the ice by teasing Charles about their ancestors. She joked that her great-grandmother had been the mistress of his great-great-grandfather. Instead of feeling awkward, Charles was completely charmed. He loved Camilla's warmth, her down-to-earth personality, and the way she made him feel relaxed despite the stiff world of royal expectations. Their bond grew quickly as they spent more time together, sharing private moments and heartfelt talks. Charles loved Camilla's authenticity, so unlike the women he usually met. But duty intervened when he left for Royal Navy service. In his absence, Camilla stayed close to Andrew Parker Bowles, an old flame who proposed to her. She accepted, changing everything between her and Charles. Charles was devastated when Camilla married another man. Despite his deep love for her, the royal family saw it as inevitable. They deemed Camilla unsuitable to be queen because of her past relationships. Tradition demanded a young, unblemished bride, making Camilla unacceptable in their eyes. Camilla married Andrew Parker Bowles in 1973 in a grand ceremony attended by high society and members of the royal circle, including Charles himself. Despite the marriage vows, the affection between Charles and Camilla never truly disappeared. They continued to share a special closeness. By the late 1970s, that closeness reignited into a full-blown affair. It was an open secret among their friends, and according to some accounts, Andrew tolerated it rather than risk losing his wife's loyalty altogether. Meanwhile, Charles faced enormous pressure from his family to find a proper bride. The image of the royal family rested on appearances of dignity and purity, and Charles's love life was no exception. He needed a wife who would be accepted by the public and fit neatly into the expectations of a royal marriage. Enter Lady Diana Spencer, a shy, sweet-natured young woman who was just 19 years old when Charles began courting her. She seemed to tick every box: youthful, aristocratic, and untainted by scandal. Their courtship was surprisingly brief, lasting only a handful of months before Charles proposed. In February 1981, their engagement was announced to the world with great fanfare. On the surface, it looked like a fairy tale come to life: the handsome prince and the innocent young woman destined to become princess. But even as wedding plans unfolded, Diana began to feel the shadow of Camilla looming over their relationship. Diana was intuitive and sensitive, and she quickly picked up on clues that something wasn't right. One day before the wedding, she stumbled upon a gift Charles had prepared for Camilla, a bracelet with a special engraving. It wasn't just a token of friendship, it was proof of an emotional bond that had never ended. The signs didn't stop there. During their honeymoon, Diana noticed a pair of cufflinks Charles wore. They were decorated with two entwined C letters, Charles and Camilla. For Diana, it was a cruel reminder that her new husband's heart was still tied to another woman. These discoveries planted seeds of suspicion and sadness that would grow in the years to come. From that moment, Diana understood that she was competing with a ghost, an old love that had never been laid to rest. The world may have believed in the perfect royal romance, but behind closed doors, the truth was much more complicated, tangled in history, longing, and the weight of centuries-old expectations. Unfortunately, Diana's marriage ended after several years of enduring her crowded marriage. Let's find out how Charles reunited with Camilla. Scandal, heartbreak, and a controversial union. As the marriage between Prince Charles and Princess Diana began to fall apart, the hidden truths that had long been simmering beneath the surface finally started to emerge. By 1986, Charles had rekindled his relationship with Camilla Parker Bowles, the woman he had loved long before he married Diana. This was not merely an innocent friendship. It was an affair that would eventually shake the foundations of the royal family. Diana was neither blind nor naive. She could sense the distance growing between her and Charles, and she knew that Camilla was at the center of it all. Her pain was deep and personal, and she refused to keep pretending that nothing was wrong. Summoning her courage, Diana confronted Camilla directly in what would become a dramatic moment in royal history. She demanded honesty. She needed to hear the truth from the woman she believed had stolen her husband's heart. For Diana, this confrontation was about more than jealousy. It was about reclaiming her dignity in a situation that had spiraled beyond her control. Years later, in 1994, Charles made a public admission that stunned Britain. In a television interview, he confessed to the affair with Camilla, explaining that he had been faithful to Diana until it became clear that the marriage had irretrievably broken down. To many, his words sounded more like an excuse than an explanation. The damage was already done, and the fairy tale image of Charles and Diana's union lay in ruins. Just when the public thought they had heard it all, an even more scandalous revelation surfaced. Months after Charles and Diana formally separated, a private telephone conversation between Charles and Camilla was leaked to the press. This was no ordinary call. It was shockingly intimate, containing words and sentiments that left people blushing and outraged. The incident was quickly nicknamed Tampon Gate, a label that captured both the absurdity and the raw inappropriateness of the exchange. Newspapers splashed excerpts across their front pages, and the British public could hardly believe the future king had spoken so crudely. For Diana, the leak was both a twisted validation of her suspicions and a fresh wound to her pride. On one hand, it proved she had never been paranoid. Charles and Camilla truly shared a closeness that went far beyond friendship. On the other hand, it was humiliating to have the world listen in on such a personal betrayal. Even those who sympathized with Charles could not deny that the scandal cast a long, dark shadow over the monarchy. Then, in 1997, tragedy struck when Diana was killed in a car accident in Paris. The world mourned her loss, and for a time Charles and Camilla retreated into the background, acutely aware of public resentment. But slowly, with careful strategy and relentless determination, they began to reappear together in public. In 1999, photographers captured their first official outing as a couple when they attended a birthday celebration at the Ritz Hotel in London. Though their relationship had spanned decades, this was the first time they openly presented themselves as partners. Their path to acceptance was anything but smooth. For years, the royal establishment resisted the idea that Camilla could ever be more than the other woman. Public opinion was harsh and unforgiving. Many Britons saw her as the reason for Diana's misery and blamed her for the collapse of the marriage. But Charles remained committed to Camilla, determined to legitimize their bond no matter the cost. After years of quiet persistence and carefully managed appearances, they finally married in 2005. the wedding was a subdued affair compared to the spectacle of Charles and Diana's nuptials, but it marked the culmination of a love story that had refused to fade. Even today, however, their relationship remains a lightning rod for controversy. Some people have softened their views on Camilla, accepting her as Charles's true companion. Others continue to see her as a calculating figure who maneuvered her way to power. The debate over her character and motives has never truly ended. Is Camilla's public persona genuinely warm and caring, or is it the product of meticulous image management? The answer likely depends on whom you ask, but there is no denying that her story has forever changed how the world sees the royal family. Despite the backlash from the public after Diana's death, Charles and Camilla rewrote the royal love story, against all odds. Let's dig into the details of the simple royal wedding. A royal love story against all odds. On April 9, 2005, a moment that mixed controversy, tradition, and romance unfolded in Windsor. Prince Charles, the heir to the British throne, married Camilla Parker Bowles in a civil ceremony held at the Windsor Guildhall. Unlike grand royal weddings of the past, this one was a more modest event, attended only by close family and a few guests. However, it was still steeped in symbolism and watched by millions around the world who were fascinated by the couple's long and complicated history. The path to this marriage was anything but smooth. In February 2005, Charles and Camilla announced their engagement, setting off a flurry of debate across Britain. Since both were divorced, and their affair during Charles's marriage to Princess Diana had been one of the biggest scandals to hit the monarchy, the idea of them marrying was controversial. Many wondered if it would even be legal for royals to wed in a civil ceremony in England. Older laws seemed to prohibit this, since royals were generally expected to marry in the Church of England. To proceed, the marriage needed the formal approval of Queen Elizabeth II, which she gave through the Privy Council, the body that officially advises the monarch. Even with her consent, the legal questions persisted. Some argued that previous legislation prevented any royal civil wedding, but government legal advisors eventually concluded that modern legal changes, including the Human Rights Act, overrode the old restrictions. Their interpretation allowed the ceremony to move forward, though not without ongoing criticism from some traditionalists. The Archbishop of Canterbury at the time, Rowan Williams, also took a cautious stance. He declined to conduct a church wedding because of the controversy around remarriage after divorce. Instead, Charles and Camilla opted for a civil ceremony, followed by a religious service of prayer and dedication at St. George's Chapel in Windsor Castle. There, the Queen and Prince Philip joined them publicly, offering visible support despite the Queen's absence from the actual signing of the marriage register. Interestingly, the wedding did not happen on the date originally planned. It was postponed by a day so that Prince Charles could travel to Rome to attend the funeral of Pope John Paul II, another historic moment unfolding alongside his own personal milestone. Camilla's wedding outfits were carefully chosen to reflect understated elegance rather than opulence. For the civil ceremony, she wore a cream-colored ensemble with a matching hat. Later, for the blessing at the chapel, she changed into a pale blue and gold coat over a flowing gown, which was widely praised by fashion critics. In keeping with royal tradition, their wedding rings were crafted from pure Welsh gold, a practice dating back to the wedding of the Queen Mother. One of the most striking parts of the blessing ceremony was a public declaration of penitence, where Charles and Camilla acknowledged sins and wickedness, words that many interpreted as an open reference to their years-long extramarital affair. This moment of contrition was seen as their attempt to make peace with the past in front of God, the Church, and the British people. The service of prayer and dedication was attended by about 800 guests, including dignitaries, friends, and family. It was also broadcast live, drawing large television audiences eager to witness this unusual royal wedding. Though the Queen was not present for the civil ceremony itself, she later hosted a reception in the opulent setting of Windsor Castle, signaling her acceptance and support for the union. After the formalities and public appearances, Charles and Camilla greeted well-wishers gathered outside, waving and smiling before retreating to Birkhall, Charles's private estate in Scotland, for a more intimate celebration away from the spotlight. The media quickly labeled the event a fairy tale for grown-ups, recognizing that this was no innocent romance, but rather the union of two people who had waited decades to be together. With their marriage, Camilla officially became the Duchess of Cornwall, stepping into a role within the royal family that was once unthinkable. Their wedding broke long-held royal precedents, proving that even the most established traditions could bend when love, time, and persistence demanded it. Almost 2 decades after the royal wedding, Camilla and Charles were crowned as the King and Queen of England. How was the atmosphere at the coronation of the woman who many felt had taken Diana's place? Let's find out. A historic crowning. The coronation of King Charles III and his wife Camilla as the King and Queen of the United Kingdom and 14 other nations in the Commonwealth was a grand and historic occasion. This elaborate ceremony took place on Saturday, May 6, 2023, at the famous Westminster Abbey in London. Charles officially became king on September 8, 2022, following the death of his mother, Queen Elizabeth II, who had ruled for over 70 years. This was the first coronation the country had seen since Elizabeth's own crowning in 1953, making it nearly 7 decades since such a spectacle had unfolded. The coronation followed the traditions of the Church of England and was built around a special Anglican service known as Holy Communion. During the event, Charles swore an oath to uphold the law and serve his people faithfully. He was then anointed with sacred oil, a symbolic act that represented his divine right and spiritual duty to lead. After this, he was presented with various ceremonial objects called the coronation regalia, including the royal scepter, orb, and crown, all symbols of both his earthly authority and his spiritual obligations. Leaders of the Church of England and senior members of the royal family gathered to pledge their loyalty to the new monarch. Ordinary citizens in Britain and across the Commonwealth realms were also invited to declare their allegiance, showing that this event was meant to unite people under the crown. In a simpler and shorter part of the ceremony, Camilla was crowned as queen, though her crowning did not involve as many rituals as Charles's. Once the religious service ended, the royal family took part in a grand procession through the streets of London, making their way back to Buckingham Palace in splendid state carriages. Along the route, thousands lined the streets to wave flags and catch a glimpse of the newly crowned royals. When they arrived at the palace, the family appeared on both the front and rear balconies to greet the cheering crowds below. This coronation was different from the older ones in several ways. It was designed to reflect the rich diversity of modern Britain, recognizing the many faiths, cultures, and communities that make up the nation today. Compared to Queen Elizabeth's ceremony, this one was shorter and less formal, in keeping with the changing times and a desire to be more inclusive. Despite these changes, the event drew massive interest. In the United Kingdom alone, the broadcast reached a peak television audience of 20.4 million people, making it the most watched program of 2023. Around the world, an estimated 2 billion viewers across 125 countries tuned in to witness this historic moment. However, the coronation was not met with universal enthusiasm. While many celebrated the occasion with joy and pride, others felt indifferent or even opposed to the idea of a monarchy. Public opinion polls conducted before the big day revealed that many people were unsure whether the ceremony, and the money spent on it by taxpayers, was justified. In London and Windsor, where large crowds gathered to celebrate, Republican groups also organized demonstrations against the monarchy. These protests led to the arrest of 64 individuals, a move that drew criticism from the human rights organization Human Rights Watch, which raised concerns about freedom of expression. Across the United Kingdom, communities marked the coronation in various ways. There were street parties filled with music and food, special church services giving thanks for the new king, and thousands of people volunteered their time for good causes. On May 7th, a day after the coronation, a huge concert was held at Windsor Castle, featuring famous artists and performers to entertain the public. In other Commonwealth countries, the response was equally mixed. While many citizens and officials took part in celebrations, some political leaders and indigenous communities used the occasion to express Republican views. They called for serious conversations about moving away from the British monarchy and for reparations to address historical injustices tied to colonial rule. This coronation was remarkable for many reasons. It was the very first of the 21st century, and the 40th time a British monarch had been crowned at Westminster Abbey, a tradition dating all the way back to William the Conqueror in 1066. It was an event that blended centuries-old rituals with modern sensibilities, leaving a lasting imprint on history. What do you think about Camilla's rise to power and her double-facedness? We would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe.